talking brain repair, not protection. So, you know, just as little as something like a kid playing soccer and bunting with a head bunt is considered a brain injury. So they're a little more subtle than you think they are. You know, I really wish that I had been giving my kids a lot more omega when they were young, because my son has been an athlete his whole life and has had several concussions. So he raced motorcycles, he was racing, you know, ski racing, he was a soccer player. If I had known what I know now, he would have been on a protective dose of omegas. So, in hindsight, everything becomes... So besides head, you know, but the reason I went to the head thing is because that was so interesting to me. And that omegas are the only things that can pass that barrier. There's also a lot of evidence that omegas are going to be help to maintain a healthy heart and could reduce coronary heart disease. They support mental acuity, which I think we already know the answer to that from what I just said, long-term cognitive health, and they also say healthy mood. They've done a lot of tests on anxiety, depression, and found that the omega really has been helpful. And of course you kind of know that it maintains a healthy cholesterol and blood pressure. I'm sure that's what your doctors have told you. Skin, and joint tenderness. And cellular inflammation is probably one of the things that you always want to be looking at, not only with fish oil, but with your antioxidants as well. So then that comes into the synergy between the two, fish oil and antioxidants. You're going to be wasting your efforts if you're not using fish oil and you're not paying attention to antioxidants. There's a synergy between the two of them. So one of them affects cellular inflammation in one way, and the other one enhances the ability for that activity to be performed. That's understandable. The synergy of cellular inflammation is that if you could imagine it to be a little bit like cancer, once you start cellular inflammation in your body, cellular inflammation is what you might say contagious to your body. It's like cancer. So you really have to pay attention to not ever letting yourself get to the corrective place that you're wanting to try to. It's very hard to bring it back. And like we said, the brain barrier. So you have anti-inflammatories like aspirin and ibuprofen and Aleve and things that can work on on inflammation, but they can't not reach the brain as far as inflammation goes. So let's see, what else did I learn here? So if the brain becomes inflamed, it's only protective. Adequate levels of anti-inflammatory are the omega-3s. So don't forget the disruption of that synergy of the signaling. So you see your parents, and all of a sudden, you know, their brain's not signaling as well. Omegas can be really helpful when you start to see that in people that are before Alzheimer's, but just starting to show those signs. It could be I wouldn't say that there's going to be much help once you've gotten into full-blown Alzheimer's, but just before that sign, if you could stop that from occurring. The other thing I think is really interesting is a lot of people assume that because flaxseed oil has omega-3 in it, it does not have the anti-inflammatory aid of fish oil. And I don't think we ever hear that. I think I assumed that it did, and only to find out that it doesn't. It's a short-chained omega, so it doesn't have the same anti-inflammatory as fish oil. And let's see, what else did I learn? I learned so much. I learned more than you want to hear, I'm afraid. I always try to... Oh, I know what's interesting. These are the signs of brain injury that you might not know ever occurred, can't remember occurred, but yet still are long-term in people. One of them is anger. One of them is lack of emotion. Eyes being really sensitive to light, really sensitive to sunlight, lights in a room, nervous around people, unable to concentrate, depression, anxiety, and even MS can be considered a form of brain trauma. And besides brain trauma, 80% of migraines are because of inflammation. So that's a large percentage in my opinion, 80%. And of course, I think we all know that fish oil is given to children so that they grow really smart brains, and because the brain development is going on, and that's of course if you want a really smart child. Anybody ever had one? They're not that easy. I said that I was talking to somebody that was pregnant the other day, and I was talking to her about all the things that she needed to take for pregnancy, and I said, and you know, you really need to take this much omega, and if you want a smart child. And she laughed. She got it. She said, "Yeah, I heard they're really hard." Yeah, especially when they become smarter than you.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
I always think they are.
So when I said the synergy between the fish oil and the polyphenols, that the polyphenols are working to preventing oxidation, and the fish oil is inflammation. So just remember that those two are so important for a good neural connection, you know, antioxidants. Let's see, what else did I learn? I do have some facts that I learned on certain